Dad, we've made the decision. You're moving to Bellevue Havens tomorrow morning. I'm sitting in my own living room when my daughter Dana drops this bombshell like she's discussing the weather. The words hit me like physical blows as I look around at the house Dorothy and I built together over 47 years. We've already signed the papers, Dana continues, not meeting my eyes. The room is paid for the first month, and we'll handle selling the house to cover ongoing costs. My son Corey leans forward in the chair I bought him for Christmas. Dad, you can't take care of this place anymore. The nursing home will be better for everyone. The house will sell for at least $850,000, adds my youngest, Carol, already calculating on her phone. After paying off your mortgage, we're looking at $780,000 to fund your care. It's the smart financial move. They're discussing the sale of my home like I'm already dead, dividing up assets they think belong to them. When Corey said, we'll handle selling the house to cover costs, I smiled, got in my car, and made one call to my lawyer. By 3 p.m. that afternoon, I had my children discovering that their $780,000 payday had been donated to St. Mary's Children's Hospital 6 months ago. And that was just the beginning of my plan. Justice must be restored and arrogance punished. You won't believe what I did next. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you're listening in the comments. 3 hours earlier, I'd driven to Dana's house for our usual Sunday family dinner. Her home was a showcase of my financial generosity. The $6,400 leather sectional I'd helped purchase, the marble coffee table that was my gift, the 65-inch Samsung television I was still making payments on. Corey sat in the matching recliner I'd funded, while Carol perched on the sofa arm, both avoiding eye contact in a way that warned me something was planned. The room felt charged with the tension of people who'd been discussing me behind my back. Dad, Dana began with her real estate agent tone, we've been talking, and we're concerned about your living situation. I sipped the expensive coffee she'd made me and waited. 38 years of marriage to Dorothy had taught me that people reveal their true intentions if you give them enough silence. You're 73 years old, Dad, Corey continued nervously. Living alone in that big house isn't safe. What if you fall? What if there's a medical emergency? We've been researching senior living communities, Carol added, pulling out brochures. Really nice places where you wouldn't worry about maintenance or cooking. I looked around their living room, taking inventory of my generosity. The crystal lamps costing $800 each. The original artwork Dana had insisted would create the right impression. The sound system Corey needed for his home theater experience. What about my house? I asked quietly. The temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. Dana, Corey, and Carol exchanged coordinated glances from hours of planning conversations I hadn't been included in. That's actually the practical part, Dana said carefully. The house would need to be sold to pay for your long-term care. In today's Coreyette, we're looking at excellent value. We've gotten preliminary estimates, Corey added excitedly. The property alone is worth $850,000, maybe more. Carol leaned forward with calculated intensity. After paying your mortgage and moving logistics, we're talking about $780,000 dedicated to ensuring you get the best possible care. That's when they announced their decision. That's when I smiled and stood up, my car keys already in my pocket. You know what? You're absolutely right. It's time to handle the practical aspects of this situation. I walked past the foyer table I'd bought as their housewarming gift past Dorothy's mirror. Dad, where are you going? Dana called to take care of some practical arrangements. Don't worry. I'm going to make sure everything gets handled exactly the way it should be. If they've been listening to my tone instead of counting their inheritance, they might have realized our definitions of practical arrangements were about to create very different outcomes. The 25-minute drive home felt eternal, and the numbers started rolling through my head like a broken slot machine. I took the long route past family land quarries, the school where I'd volunteered, the park where Dorothy and I pushed our kids on swings, the baseball field where I'd coached Corey's team. Dorothy would have seen through their manipulation immediately. Watch what people do when they think no one's looking, she used to say. I should have paid attention to how my children treated my generosity like a salary rather than gifts. The financial reality hit me in waves. Monthly support to Dana. $2,400 for 3 years since her divorce. $86,400 right there. Corey's business loan, $45,000. Carol's condo down payment, $38,000. I pressed the accelerator harder passing the furniture store, where I'd co-signed for Dana's living room, the car dealership where I'd helped Corey with his BMW, the jewelry store where I'd bought Carol's engagement ring when her fiancé couldn't afford what she wanted. The cruel irony was staggering. I'd been so generous, they thought selling my house was necessary to fund my care, while my actual net worth would have shocked them. The small accounting firm I'd owned for 35 years had been more successful than I'd admitted. Combined with investments, Dorothy's life insurance, and 43 years of saving, I had enough assets to fund my own care for decades without touching the house. But the house wasn't about money. It was about home. About the place where Dorothy and I built our life, raised our children, created memories of holidays and quiet Sunday mornings. My phone buzzed with Dana's text. "Dad, thanks for being so understanding today. We really think you'll love Bellevue Havens." The audacity was breathtaking. She'd gone from announcing my forced relocation to acting like I'd enthusiastically agreed to abandon my home. I typed back, already handling the practical arrangements. "Don't worry about the house sale. I'll take care of everything." Her response, "You're the best dad ever. This is going to be so much better for everyone." I deleted our text thread and drove toward the house my children thought they were about to sell. The house that had actually been donated to St. Mary's Children's Hospital 6 months ago, the day after Dana jokingly mentioned my place was too valuable to just sit there with one old man. Sometimes the best revenge is just being smarter than people think you are. The phone rang at exactly 10:47 the next morning. I was drinking coffee from Dorothy's favorite mug when Dana's name lit up my caller ID. "Good morning, Dad." Her voice bubbled with forced enthusiasm. "Corey will be there at 1 p.m. to help you pack essentials." I set down my mug carefully. "That's thoughtful. We've been so excited, Dad. I've already contacted 3 real estate agents about listing the house." The arrogance dripped through the phone like poison. "Have you now? The Coreyette is so hot right now. One agent thinks we could list at $875,000 and get multiple offers within the first week." My hand tightened around the phone until my knuckles went white. "Dana, when exactly did you decide you had the right to sell my house?" Pause. "Dad, we talked about this yesterday. You agreed selling was practical to fund your care." "I agreed to that. You said you'd handle practical arrangements. We assumed you understood the financial necessity of liquidating your real estate assets." "You assumed." "Dad, I don't like your tone. We're being very responsible about managing your care finances." I looked out at Dorothy's bird feeder, watching a cardinal bright red against gray December sky. "How much money do you think I need for Bellevue Havens?" "Monthly fee is $4,200 plus additional costs. Around $60,000 per year, which means the house sale would fund approximately 13 years of care." "And after 13 years?" "Dad, let's be realistic. At your age, 13 years is adequate planning." The casual dismissal of my life expectancy hit like a physical blow. "So you've calculated I'll be dead by 86. We're just being practical about long-term financial planning." "Who's long-term financial planning? Because if you're expecting me to die in 13 years, you're planning for when my care costs end and leftover money becomes available for your inheritance." "That's terrible to say. We're not thinking about inheritance. We're thinking about proper care." Without asking me, without consulting me about where I want to live. You just decided what was financially convenient for you. The silence stretched dangerously. "Dana, did you ever consider asking what I wanted? Did it occur to you I might have my own resources to handle whatever I decide? At your age, it's important to be realistic about limitations." "My limitations or your assumptions?" "Corey will not be packing anything at 1 p.m. because I'm not moving. And you will not be selling my house because it's no longer mine to sell." "What do you mean?" "Exactly what I said. While you were planning my future behind my back, I was making practical arrangements of my own." "What kind of arrangements?" "The kind that ensure my house goes to people who will appreciate it instead of people who see it as a liquidation opportunity." Dad, what did you do? This conversation is over. We're done pretending your concern for my welfare is anything other than concern for your inheritance. I hung up and sat in the sudden quiet, thinking about the cardinal and whether Dorothy would approve of what I was about to put our children through. That afternoon, I spread financial documents across my kitchen table like evidence at a crime scene. Bank statements, transfer receipts, property records, 23 years of documentation that looked like a roadmap of systematic exploitation disguised as family support. My calculator clicked as I added numbers. Monthly support to Dana since her divorce. $2,400 times 36 months equals $86,400. Corey's business loan, $45,000. Carol's condo down payment, $38,000. Dana's furniture, $8,900. Corey's BMW, $12,000. Carol's wedding, $23,000. The numbers piled up like autumn leaves. Total, $245,600 in direct financial support over 3 years. But the painful calculations were personal. Home maintenance I deferred because helping Carol seemed more important than fixing my roof. Medical care I'd postponed because Corey's business crisis took priority over my cataract surgery. I've been eating peanut butter sandwiches while funding their lifestyles, and they repaid my generosity by calculating how quickly they could liquidate my home. I pulled out the deed transfer documents from 6 months ago. Edward hereby donates residential property at 847 Maple Street to St. Mary's Children's Hospital, with donor retaining life estate until death or voluntary relocation. The donation had been prompted by Dana's joke about my house being too valuable to waste on one old man. At the time, I'd thought she was thoughtless. Now I realized she'd been testing waters for exactly this manipulation. I called First National Bank. I need account history for transfers to my children over 5 years. 20 minutes later, Mr. Emerson, I show total transfers of $312,847 over 5 years. That's quite generous. Can you tell me my current balances? Checking shows $89,432. Savings shows $156,789. Investment account shows $847,293. Add business sale proceeds $425,000. Dorothy's life insurance $200,000. And pension value $340,000. And I had total liquid assets over $2 million, enough to fund luxury senior living for 30 years without touching real estate. The irony was overwhelming. My children planned to sell my house to fund 13 years of basic care, when I had enough liquid assets to fund 3 decades of premium care without selling anything. For the first time since Dorothy died, I could see clearly. My children hadn't been helping me plan appropriate care. They'd been preparing to liquidate my assets while parking me in cost-effective storage. Dana called at 8:30 the next morning. I was reading the newspaper when her name appeared on my screen. I let it ring. By 9:15, she called 4 times. Corey twice. Carol once with 6 demanding text messages. At 10:30, Dana called from Corey's phone. I answer on the 3rd ring. Dad, thank goodness. Dana's been trying to reach you. Sorry, I was reading and didn't feel like talking. Dana's concerned about yesterday's conversation. She said you mentioned something about the house not being yours to sell anymore. That's very thoughtful. We were wondering if you could meet us for lunch today. Nothing formal. Just clear up misunderstandings and get back on track with Bellevue Havens. I smiled. The trap was setting itself. What time and where? Noon at Applebee's on 5th Street. I'll be there. I hung up, poured coffee, and settled with estate planning books. At 11:45, my phone started ringing. 11:52, 11:58, 12:03, 12:07. At 12:15, Dana called directly. Dad, where are you? We've been waiting 15 minutes. Oh, Dana, I got distracted reading about charitable donations and tax implications and lost track of time. You got distracted? We carved time out of our schedules for important family matters. Important like selling my house. Important like making sure you get proper care and don't make rash decisions. You know what might help? having family conversations in my own home instead of public restaurants where people can overhear private business. Long pause. Dad, what's gotten into you? I'm acting like someone who's had time to think about yesterday and realize some things that weren't immediately obvious. What kind of things? Things like none of you asking what I wanted before deciding what was best for me. Things like you being more excited about the house sale than my welfare. Dad, can you please just come to the restaurant? Actually, why don't you all come over this evening? Say 6 p.m. Your house? Dad, we're trying to help you transition away from that house. And I'm trying to help you understand some things about that house you apparently don't know. What kind of things? Things that will become clear when you get here at 6 p.m. I hung up and walked to my kitchen window. 2 cardinals were at the feeder. Male and female sharing sunflower seeds Dorothy had always insisted on buying. I unplugged my landline and turned off my cell phone completely. Perfect silence. For the first time in months, I'd spent an afternoon thinking about what I wanted instead of what my children thought I needed. At exactly 6 p.m., they arrived like an intervention team. I could hear their voices in my driveway, the sound of people who'd been coordinating strategy for hours. I think he's having some kind of cognitive episode. Dana's voice carried through my door. This isn't like him. Maybe we should have brought Dr. Lee, Corey responded. Someone professional to evaluate his competence. He's competent enough to mess up our plan, Carol laughed bitterly. We need to figure out what he meant about the house. They knocked with aggressive politeness. Good evening, I said, opening the door to find them arranged like missionaries. Dad, we need to talk, Dana said, pushing past me without invitation. They arranged themselves like a tribunal, Dana on the sofa, Corey in my recliner, Carol on the coffee table edge, to maintain eye contact and project authority. Dad, we're very concerned about your behavior today. Missing our meeting, making cryptic comments, refusing to engage constructively about Bellevue Havens. I remained standing, maintaining the option of ending this conversation whenever I chose. Actually, this is exactly like me. Like the me who expects to be consulted about decisions affecting my life instead of being presented with arrangements made behind my back. We're trying to help you plan responsibly for your future, Corey protested. Responsible for whom? For you. Making sure you get proper care and don't end up in substandard facilities because you waited too long. What makes you think I haven't already made smart decisions about my future? Because you're 73 living alone in a house too big for you, with no support system. Carol said with aggressive intensity. I have no plan. If you have a plan, why haven't you shared it? Dana asked. Why are we forcing this conversation instead of working together? Maybe because last time I trusted you with information about my situation, you immediately started calculating how to liquidate my assets for my own good. Corey stood up with threatening posture. Dad, check your attitude. We are your family. We love you, and we won't let you make dangerous decisions just because you're too proud to accept help. Endanger my health how? By living alone, by refusing appropriate care, by being stubborn about a house that's become a liability. A liability to whom? Dana pulled out her phone dramatically. I'm calling Dr. Lee. You need professional guidance because you're making irrational decisions and refusing constructive engagement with family. Her phone was dialing. Dr. Lee, this is Dana Emerson. Yes, he's having an episode, making statements suggesting cognitive decline and refusing appropriate care arrangements. I looked at Corey and Carol avoiding my eyes while their sister arranged psychiatric intervention with a doctor I'd never met. So, this is how we handle family disagreements? By having Dana call a psychiatrist. We're worried, Carol said weakly. You're not acting like yourself. I'm acting like a man who owns his house and has the right to make decisions about his future without interference from children who think they know better. Dana finished her call. Dr. Lee can see you Thursday at 10 a.m. He specializes in geriatric psychology and family transitions. And if I refuse, then we'll consider other options for ensuring your welfare and protecting you from harmful decisions. Other options like what? Like adult protective services, Corey said, stepping closer. Like seeking guardianship if you're no longer competent. Like having you declared legally incompetent so we can make decisions for you, Carol added. The room went quiet. Outside, normal families were having normal evenings while mine plotted to have me declared incompetent. So you want to have me declared mentally incompetent so you can force me into a nursing home and sell my house against my will. We want to protect you from mistakes affecting your health and financial security, Dana corrected. My security or your inheritance prospects? This has nothing to do with inheritance. I walked to my front door and opened it wide. I want all three of you out of my house. Now, you're being unreasonable. I'm a property owner asking unwelcome guests to leave. If you don't leave voluntarily, I'll call police for trespassing. As they filed out, Carol turned back for final manipulation. I hope you'll reconsider before Thursday. Dr. Lee will want to know why a reasonable man has become paranoid and hostile toward family who love him. Tell Dr. Lee that the reasonable man figured out the difference between family who love him and family who love his assets. Let them plan their next strategy. By Thursday, they discovered their careful plans had one fatal flaw. They never bothered to ask what I actually wanted. 3 days later, my neighbor Margaret knocked with a newspaper and genuine concern. Edward, I think you should see this. The headline made my blood run cold. Local senior refuses family help. Raises welfare concerns. David Walsh had painted me as a confused elderly man whose loving family was desperately trying to save him from poor judgment. The article claimed I was refusing assistance during recent winter weather emergency and displaying paranoid thinking about family assistance efforts. But there had been no winter weather emergencies. I checked records, clear skies for 2 months. Margaret, have I seemed confused to you? She looked at my well-maintained property. Edward, you've been the same helpful neighbor always. You seem completely normal. Then you're reading Character Assassination. I researched David Walsh online, freelance journalist specializing in family crisis reporting. Recent client, Emerson Family Services, a business Dana had created. Professional reference, Dr. Lee. Recent social media, photos with Dana at networking lunch. My laptop became command central. For hours documenting connections between my children, Dr. Lee, and David Walsh. They'd made 3 critical mistakes. Underestimating my intelligence, overestimating their cleverness, and forgetting 43 years of business had taught me to follow money trails. By afternoon, I had complete picture of their strategy. Dana hired David to write the article. Dr. Lee provided professional quotes without meeting me. They thought they were creating public pressure for psychiatric evaluation. They'd actually created documented conspiracy that could be easily exposed. I call my lawyer. Tom, I need a defamation lawsuit. This is serious, Edward. Can you prove the weather emergency claims are false? Completely. Weather Service records showing clear skies when they claimed emergency conditions. And you can prove financial connections? Business records, LinkedIn profiles, social media posts, everything. Your children have made serious error in judgment. Yes, and tomorrow, they'll discover exactly how serious. Christmas Eve arrived with fresh snow and crisp winter air. I've been planning this day for 2 weeks, and everything was ready. My briefcase sat by the door, packed with folders, financial exploitation documentation, media conspiracy evidence, false medical claims, property ownership records, and legal actions pending. At 4 p.m., I drove to Dana's for their Christmas reconciliation dinner, a family healing gathering they promised would include no nursing home discussion, just holiday traditions. I'd agreed because I knew exactly who else would be there. Dana's house was decorated like a magazine. White lights, silver ornaments, enough evergreen to supply a forest. The 12-foot tree dominated the living room, surrounded by presents costing more than most families' monthly income. Dad! Dana opened the door with genuinely relieved smile. Everyone's here. 16 faces turned toward me with expressions ranging from surprise to barely concealed pity. Neighbors I'd expected, plus professional-looking individuals. Probably Dana's real estate network and Corey's business associates. Perfect. Edward. Janet Williams rushed over with careful hug. We were so concerned after that newspaper article. I'm doing very well, Janet. Actually better than I have in months. Corey appeared with eggnog and nervous smile. Thanks for coming, Dad. I think we can work through this with open hearts and honest communication. Honest communication. Exactly what I was hoping for. Carol emerged from kitchen with expensive appetizers. Dad, you look wonderful. We've all been so worried since that article. Actually, I brought something for everyone. A Christmas presentation that will clear up any misunderstandings. Dana's smile bleakered. We agreed this would just be family celebration. No heavy conversations. This isn't heavy. It's quite enlightening. Everyone here has been concerned based on that article, and they deserve to know the truth. I retrieved my briefcase. When I returned, conversations had stopped, and all 16 faces focused on me. As many of you know, there's an article suggesting I was experiencing cognitive decline and refusing family assistance. I handed first documents to Janet Williams. These are my recent medical records from Dr. Patricia Kim. As you can see, I had comprehensive annual physical 8 weeks ago and received perfect cognitive scores. No mental decline, no confusion. I handed photographs to Bob Williams. These show my house taken by insurance company 6 weeks ago. Clean, well-maintained, no signs of neglect requiring emergency intervention. Murmurs rippled as people examined documents. Some of you read, I was refusing reasonable assistance from loving family. These documents tell different story. I handed business records to Corey's associates. These show Dana created Emerson Family Services specifically for family transition consulting, and this entity paid journalist David Walsh $3,500 for crisis communications services 2 days before the article was published. Complete silence except rustling papers. But here's where it gets interesting. I pulled out social media evidence. These documents show professional connections between my children and Dr. Lee, who provided quotes about my mental state for the newspaper. I handed these to Dana's colleagues. Dr. Lee has been connected to all 3 children on LinkedIn for the past month, and his practice received $2,400 in consultation fees from Emerson Family Services, despite me never meeting or being evaluated by him. One colleague looked up with professional disgust. Dana, you paid a psychiatrist to make public statements about your father's mental health without examination? It's not that simple, Dana said weakly, face draining color. We were genuinely concerned and needed professional guidance. Concerned enough to hire journalists to write false story? Bob Williams asked, waving business documents. I pulled out property records and distributed final contents. These documents explain why my children were eager to have me declared incompetent and moved into institutional care. The folder contained original property deed transfer documents from 6 months ago, and correspondence from St. Mary's Children's Hospital acknowledging ownership of my house. As you can see, my children plan to sell my house for $850,000 to fund my care. What they didn't know is that I donated the house to St. Mary's Children's Hospital 6 months ago, retaining only life estate rights to live here until my death. Deafening silence. 16 faces stared with shock, horror, barely concealed admiration. Janet Williams spoke first. Edward, this is elder abuse. Systematic manipulation and attempted theft. And fraud, added Corey's associate. Creating fake business entity to pay for defamatory media coverage? This could result in criminal charges. Dana was crying, mascara streaming. Dad, you don't understand. We weren't trying to steal anything. We were trying to make sure you got proper care without becoming financial burden. Burden on whom? Tom Williams demanded. On someone who'd given you hundreds of thousands over the years. This is incredible, another voice said. I've seen inheritance disputes, but never children trying to institutionalize their parent to steal real estate that doesn't even belong to them anymore. I closed my briefcase and looked around at faces of people who'd known me for years. I want everyone to know that I am mentally competent, financially secure, and perfectly capable of making my own decisions. I also want everyone to know that my children have been systematically exploiting my generosity while planning to liquidate assets that don't belong to them. I walked toward the door, then turned back. And this is the last Christmas I'll spend with people who think love means access to other people's property. As I walked out, I could see animated conversations starting through their window. By tomorrow, everyone in our social circle would know the truth. But more importantly, they would know that sometimes the best revenge is just being smarter than people think you are. 3 months later, consequences were visible everywhere in our small community. Dana's real estate career had imploded when word spread about her media manipulation scheme. The brokerage terminated her contract after agents complained her reputation affected their client trust. Her professional website now showed currently unavailable. Corey's consulting practice lost every client when business owners learned about the psychiatric fraud and inheritance scheme. His downtown office was replaced by home-based setup, and the BMW I'd helped purchase was listed with must-sell immediately urgency. Carol's social circle had completely abandoned her. She'd been removed from junior league board, dropped from country club committees, and was no longer invited to charity events where she'd built her identity. Legal consequences were swift. Tom Bradley filed comprehensive defamation lawsuits against all 3 children, David Walsh and Dr. Lee. David Walsh settled immediately, publishing front-page corrective article admitting his reporting was based on false information. Dr. Lee was facing ethics charges and would probably lose his license. Edward, Tom explained my options. Your children's lawyers are offering $200,000 plus legal costs if you'll sign non-disclosure agreement. They want to buy my silence. What do you want? I thought about Dorothy, about family values we tried to instill through 43 years of love and sacrifice. I want them to face full consequences. I want public record to show exactly what they did. And I want them to understand some betrayals have permanent costs. Then we proceed to trial. 6 weeks later, Carol called for the first time since Christmas. Dad, please. We can't afford this lawsuit anymore. Dana can't find work. Corey's business has collapsed. Please tell us what you want to make this stop. I looked out at the bird feeder where generations of Cardinals had raised families. What I want is for you to understand that actions have permanent consequences. When you attack someone's reputation and try to steal their property, you don't get to undo damage with money you don't have. So what will it take for forgiveness? I want all 3 of you to move out of state. Leave this community where you've humiliated yourselves and me, and never contact me again. Build new lives somewhere else with your own resources. And then you'll forgive us. Then I'll stop actively destroying what's left of your reputations. Forgiveness is something you'll have to earn from people who haven't watched you try to steal from your own father. She agreed through tears, and within 2 weeks, all 3 had settlement agreements and relocation timelines. 90 days to leave state. It wasn't forgiveness, but it was justice. 6 months later, I sat in my renovated kitchen reading a letter from St. Mary's development director about their plans for the property. The kitchen renovation had been my first major self-expenditure in years. New appliances, granite countertops, custom cabinets, and bay windows overlooking the expanded garden Dorothy had always wanted. The contractor was amazed at the structural integrity. This place will serve the hospital well for decades. St. Mary's letter contained plans that would have made Dorothy weep with joy. After my death, the house would become family residence for parents of children receiving long-term treatment. Families who couldn't afford hotel costs during their children's cancer treatments would have a place to stay together, maintaining family unity during the most difficult times. My life's work would continue serving families in crisis rather than being liquidated for convenience of people who never appreciated what they had. The phone rang with unknown number. Mr. Emerson? This is Jennifer Walsh from Channel 7 News. We're doing follow-up story about elder abuse and family financial exploitation. We'd like to interview you about your experience. I smiled, thinking about how my children's story had become cautionary tale for other families. Ms. Walsh, I've said everything I need to say. The legal record speaks for itself. We understand you donated your house to charity rather than let your children sell it. Can you tell us about that decision? I gave my home to people who would actually use it to help families rather than people who saw it as liquidation opportunity. Your message to other elderly people experiencing similar family pressure? I thought about Dorothy, about lessons we'd learned about distinguishing between genuine love and calculated manipulation. My message is that family loyalty should be mutual, and it's never too late to recognize the difference between people who love you and people who love what you can give them. That evening, I sat reading estate planning guides, thinking about other changes I'd made. The monthly financial support had been redirected to St. Mary's General Fund. The emergency assistance fund I'd maintained for family crises was now an endowment for families who couldn't afford medical bills. The inheritance my children had counted on was now a legacy, helping strangers who appreciated what they received. My phone buzzed with text from unknown number. Dad, this is Dana. We're all settled in our new states. We're doing okay and hope someday you'll be willing to talk to us again. I looked at the message for a long moment, then deleted it without responding. Some bridges, once burned by betrayal and greed, simply can't be rebuilt with apologies and time. But some legacies, once properly protected, can serve families for generations. If you like this story, please like this video. Subscribe to the channel and share your impressions of this story in the comments. Remember, real family respects your choices and supports your independence. Never let anyone convince you that age means surrendering control of your life to people who think they know better than you do. And always remember that the best revenge against people who try to steal from you is simply being smarter than they think you are.
If this story got you thinking, go ahead and hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe for more real stories that hit deep, and tap the bell so you don't miss what's coming next. And hey, if you know someone who needs to hear this one, share it with them. Thanks for watching.